The Premier League is back, and welcome to my league table predictions. And before we get underway, I must stress three things. Number one, rage baiting. It's a bit of a new phrase to me. I used to call it winding up. However, rage baiting is where you put out content in order to provoke people, make people angry and upset, and as a result, you get more views. That's not something I do. However, it's near on impossible to do a league table predictions without almost upsetting some fans. Football is tribal. People are going to get upset when you see that some other geezer, especially a random Scottish geezer, has predicted your team to be in the bottom three or to not win the title or not to get European football. They're going to get annoyed. I get it. That's not the purpose of this video. The purpose of this video is for point number two, which is it's a bit of fun to trigger some discussions. So don't be shy, get involved in the comments below and give me your league table prediction as well. And finally, number three, I wish I could edit videos. I would love to have graphics swiping in and out of this video, league table next to me, going up and down whenever I'm speaking about someone. Can't do that. Don't know how you do it. Would love to learn. Going to try and learn. But for now, you've got the sort of the Temu presenter, and you're going to have the wish.com version when it comes to editing. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. I've got my own order here, just made it up. A little bit of anticipation, keeping the relegation until further on in the video, keeping the title winners until further on in the video. So we're going to kick it off with a boring team. And when I say a boring team, I mean where they're going to finish, and that's Bournemouth. Anything but boring. I'm putting them in 14th place. I'm a little bit suspicious by them. Now, obviously, there's nearly 3 weeks of the transfer window still to run, so a lot is going to change because no one can predict these league tables. Let's be honest, no one can predict it. We've got no form, there's injuries to come, there's still transfers to be done, there's loads of stuff. We don't know, that's why it's just a bit of fun. But I think looking at Bournemouth, they've replaced Howson now, that's fantastic. Lost the Barney as well, they've replaced Kirkes. So I think the players they're bringing in are good. But I'm still waiting for them to bring someone in that could replace Ryan Christie, because I thought he was their best player last season. I thought he was their most important player. And when he got injured, I thought Bournemouth tanked. So I thought surely they're going to address that this summer so that if he does get injured again, there won't be an issue. However, I don't think they've done that. Saying that though, the type of football they play is exciting, but most importantly, it suits the Premier League. They'll be fine this season. I just don't think they'll be as good as last season. Three big players have left to big clubs, Liverpool, Real Madrid, PSG. What a big compliment that is to your scouting process. Bournemouth in 14th. Arsenal, putting them third. I'm putting them third. They've had a decent enough transfer window. Is it enough to bridge the gap? This is going to sound like a weird prediction. I'm predicting them to finish a position lower, but I actually think the points gap between Arsenal and Liverpool this season will be smaller than it was last season. So I think they will bridge the gap a little bit. It's just that I think someone else is going to come in between them. I'm going to put Arsenal in third. Pressure's on Arteta. I think he's got to deliver. Qualifying for Champions League football isn't delivering anymore at the Emirates. They've spent a lot of money under Arteta. It's time he brought some silverware to that club. Moving on to Everton, I'm going to put them in 10th place. I like their transfer business. I think Moyes is a safe bet, a safe pair of hands. When I'm doing this league table, I'm putting the ones in the bottom. I think Everton won't be in a relegation battle. They'll be okay. I don't think they'll be in contention for European football. I think they've got a small advantage over Nottingham Forest and Crystal Palace. So I've popped them in 10th place. Under David Moyes, you know, since Moyes returned to Everton, in terms of like a points tally, it was right up there with the best in the Premier League. Now, they're not going to get that this season. But I think what they will get is enough to keep them away from the bottom, but not quite enough to close the gap on the top and get them competing for European football. I think Everton will be in for a safe, stable season, but after what feels like quite a rocky period, and we're going stretching back years now, under Dyche, under Lampard, I think this is actually a good season. A season of boring for Everton in regards to not being in a relegation battle. I think that's a success. I think they're in for a successful season that's relative to where they have been previously, building a foundation that they can build on going forward into 12 months' time. Moving on then to Crystal Palace, one of the two teams. 12th place, I'm going to put Crystal Palace. They've got a big question mark for me. Mark Gay likely to leave. Is Eze going to join Spurs or Arsenal? That's two huge losses. So I'm putting Crystal Palace in 12th. But if I was to do this again, which I might do, in the first international break, windows shut, we've got a bit of evidence now, I wouldn't be surprised if we're predicting, or I wouldn't be surprised if I'm predicting Palace to finish a bit lower. Pressure's on to replace those, because that's two massive, massive players to try and replace. Not a lot of time to do it in either. Plus, they've got European football. I understand why they'll be disappointed they're not in the Europa League. Completely get it. I think it might give them a bit of a benefit. It might be hard for them to see it now, but they should be able to cruise through that Conference League stages for a little while without stressing too much. Whereas Nottingham Forest, I don't think, have that luxury. There's a lack of squad depth at Palace. The geeks at Opta reckon playing in European football costs you 9 points in the Premier League. Now, obviously, that's an average, and you can't attribute that to every single club. It doesn't work like that, does it? But it gives you a bit of an idea. I think with Palace, I think it's fair to suggest that it might cost them some points this season. Well, say it did cost them 9 points. That's a lot. That's 3 wins. Could you imagine them starting the season on minus 9 points? So it's a lot of ground to make up. So I'm going to put them in 12th, but it's with a slight reservation. Because if they don't get the rest of the window right, I think they could drop a few places in there. Talk that Glasner's unhappy as well. Don't know. It's been a fantastic few months for Crystal Palace, but they need to get this month right. Otherwise, it could be a little bit of a bumpy road for them. Right below them in 13th place, I'm going to put Nottingham Forest. They're sort of new rivals, if you like. I'm not going to lie. I am looking forward to watching Palace play Nottingham Forest in the league this season. The atmosphere will be really, really good as well. So I'm looking forward to this fixture. I'm going to put them in 13th. I like some of the business they've done, but they need to do a lot more. So the players are bringing in, I'm a fan of, but I still think there's a lot of work to be done. They've got a Europa League campaign. There will be a bit more pressure on them than there is Crystal Palace. I worry a little bit. Pre-season, they've been really struggling for goals. Defensively, I think they'll be solid this season. Again, they've kept a hold, unlike Bournemouth. They've kept a hold of their centre-backs, Murillo and Milenkovic. That's good news for them. And I think that's the platform for Forest. Their defence, having a solid defence is what makes them good. They've got that. That's staying intact. But I am looking at the squad thinking they're just lacking in that squad depth now. You need to bring in quality players that will be on the bench week in, week out, that can play Thursday night football as well, or can play on a Sunday when the first team players need a rest. I don't think they're quite there yet for me. So I think they've got a little bit of work to do. However, I feel quite confident they're going to spend a bit of money. James McAtee expected to join, for example. So I think Forest will still spend. But I think they need to still spend as well. So I'm going to leave them in 13th place. Back up to European football, 5th place. I'm going to pop Aston Villa. I think, weirdly, they might benefit from Europa League compared to Newcastle with Champions League football. Was expecting a bit more from them in the transfer window, and maybe there will be a bit more to come. Asensio, for example, heavily linked with the move to Villa Park. But they feel solid. They feel stable. Getting a good transfer fee for Ramsey, you would imagine they're going to go spend that, not just on Asensio, on someone else as well. They've got Gassand in there too, which will help in terms of the goals and assists, which at times last season I feel like they had a lot of players, but not many players were producing on a consistent basis like Rodgers was. But you look at Bailey, for example, and it was like, where's your contribution? Buendia, I think, has had a really good pre-season, so that's almost like a new signing for Aston Villa. So I think there's a little bit of work to be done there, but I think Villa fans can expect a good season. They've been able to keep, a lot of talk about Martinez and Watkins going. They still might, but at present, they're still at that club. So I think sometimes that's continuation of keeping a successful squad and not really making much changes isn't always a bad thing. If you can't improve on what you got, make sure you don't lose what you have. And I think that's roughly where I would put Aston Villa. Dropping down a few places now to a hard one to call, Spurs. I'm going to put them in 8th, and I'm just going to call it the Thomas Frank effect, because ultimately that's what it is. But I still can't shake that statistic from Ange Postecoglou that if you took the games when he had his first choice back four of Udogie, Van de Ven, Romero and Porto, and you look at the games they played, the points tally they accrued in those games, and you divided by the amount of games to get the average and multiplied by 38, they'd be in the Champions League spots last season. So when those four were fit and firing under Postecoglou, Spurs were fantastic. But there was a lot of games last season I seen Ben Davies and Archie Gray playing centre-back. They were decimated with injuries. And that really, essentially, it's cost Postecoglou's job, in my opinion. Frank's gone in there. I think defensively, they will be more solid. I don't think you're going to see this. At times, it was a bit of a joke, really. That game against Chelsea, when Spurs were down to 9 men, I think it was, and they were just stood all on the halfway line. All the Chelsea players were on the halfway line facing the Spurs goal. I think it's Reece James is just 10 yards behind them, knocking it over the top of the defence for them all to run onto. You're not going to see that under Thomas Frank. Right? The defensive memes of Spurs are gone. The shaky goalkeeper at set pieces, I think Frank will remove that weakness of Spurs. I expect them to be a lot more solid. I think they're going to be tactically a lot more switched on. I think tactically they're going to adapt from game to game, which isn't something you always seen under Postecoglou. So I don't think it might not be as fun as it was under Ange. So when Ange was good, Spurs were good. But when Ange was bad, Spurs were bad, right? I don't think you're going to see that discrepancy in performances and results anymore. I think it's going to be a lot more consistent at Tottenham. Maybe a little bit more boring. A few more 1-0, 2-0 wins. But I think that's maybe what they need. It'll be interesting to see how they can get on with a Champions League campaign as well as the Premier League. So I'm going to put them in 8th, which is likely to be missing out on European football, but still a good season domestically for them. In 20th, I'm going to put Burnley. And I feel bad. I mean, no matter who I put in 20, it's just a prediction, but no matter who I put in here, I'm going to feel guilty, right? And part of me thinks they should be all right, though. Defensively last season, they were insane. It's not even like they were good. They were insane. 16 goals conceded in 46 games. 16 goals conceded in 46 games. That is mental. So defensively, they were so good in the Championship. They were so organised. They were very selfless. They played the way they had to play to get results. So in theory, that mentality, that structure, you should be able to pick it up and put it in the Premier League. The style of play, you could argue that to some extent Burnley's is actually the better of the three to be coming out of that division with, because you're not coming up playing gung-ho attacking football, and that's how you're going to start attacking teams in the Premier League and find yourself getting ripped apart. But I just don't have faith that they can be defensively that good. They've lost their goalkeeper. They've lost one of their centre-backs. They've lost their goal scorer. Well, one of the goal scorers in Josh Brownhill. It's big losses. Now, I think they've done some good business, Burnley. They spent a lot of money, over 120 million they've spent now. So they're not coming up, and, you know, there's no little guy here just appreciating his day out in the Premier League. There's none of that. They're showing ambition. Sunderland and Leeds are getting a lot of credit for their ambition. But actually, Sunderland, yeah, but Leeds, I think, have spent about half the amount that Burnley have. Burnley have spent a lot more. So they are showing ambition too. I just think the players they're bringing in, Broya aside, I think are good. It's the players that are currently there that they're adding to that I have concerns with. I'm just not convinced that they are at Premier League level. There's one or two players, like Marcus Edwards, for example, I'm looking at saying, well, let's see if you've got it. A few years ago, I thought he did. Went over to Portugal, did all right in Portugal. He's gone to Burnley. It felt like a bit of a coup at the time. A bit like when Leafy went to Sunderland. It was one of those, oh, wow, okay, that's a bit of a good signing. Can they step up? That's the big question. I'm just not sure. I remain unconvinced of Scott Park as well. I don't think he's had the best time in the Premier League as a manager. So it'd be interesting to see if he's ready as well as his squad. I just think they're just going to be lacking, say something, the firepower and the clean sheets. I'm not sure they've got either, really. So unfortunately, I'm going to put Burnley in 20th. 11th place, surely there's only one team you can put here, right? Fulham. It's got to be, right? 11th, Fulham. Safe. I don't know what else to add. What else can I add about Fulham apart from safe? They've got a really good manager, Marco Silva. They had a decent squad coming into the summer. I think they're still going to need to add quite a bit to it. Marco Silva's confirmed he has final say on all incomings and outgoings. Mooney's expecting to go. You'd then expect Fulham to spend big money. to bring in a replacement. They're linked with quite a few players. I'm sort of waiting to see what business they do. However, even if they don't do anything, because of Marco Silva and the way that squad just fits the way that Silva likes to play at Fulham, I think they'll be fine this season. I just think, I don't know, lacking adventure maybe. But that's not a bad thing for a club that's just having stability in the Premier League. I think is underrated, and I think Fulham's got that. If you can go into the season not really worrying about relegation, then you're a good club. And that's how I see Fulham. Moving on then, Chelsea. Top four. Surely the top four is nailed on, right? I feel like the top four is nailed. Not in this order. Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea. I feel like that's the four. Where are Chelsea going to go? A bit like Crystal Palace, I'm struggling to call them. Because I've always thought they'll get top four. But that performance against PSG, man, that is completely, like, it blew me away how good they were at the Club World Cup, Chelsea, in that final against PSG. As a one-off performance in a match, Chelsea were outstanding. It was enough to make me sit up and take notice and make me think, maybe, could they challenge for the title? I don't think they'll be a million miles away. Now, I'm going to put them in fourth. And the reason I'm putting them in fourth is because I have a concern over their participation in the Club World Cup. What is the impact of that? They've had one friendly. It's a lot of football for a lot of the players at Chelsea. Will it impact them? I don't know. I feel like it must. There's got to be an effect of playing in the Club World Cup. However, it would not surprise me if come Christmas Chelsea were sitting first or second in the league. I wouldn't be shocked. If I was a Chelsea fan, I'd be very, very excited about what they could do this season. I feel like I'm not going to predict the trophy winners. That's even harder to call. I feel like Chelsea could win something this season. If they don't win the Premier League, whether it be the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup, I feel like they may have silverware at Stamford Bridge. That PSG performance, I just can't shake it. I just cannot. Honestly, it blew me away. It was a bit like watching Crystal Palace in the semi-final against Aston Villa of the FA Cup. It was one of them. I thought, wow, this is complete. But Chelsea were outstanding against what I thought was easily the best team in football last season. Chelsea just swatted them to one side as if they were playing a normal Premier League team. You can probably tell I was very, very impressed. Right then, my team, West Ham. I'm going to pop us in 15th. I think there's a few teams where I think anything's up for grabs. You're always a couple of bad injuries away from plummeting down the league towards the relegation zone. You're a couple of really good signings away from climbing up the league towards the European qualification. I think we're one of those teams in that mix. I think it'll be a bit of a boring season for us. I think the football itself will be a bit boring. I think the games we win, I think they'll tend to be 1-0, 2-0. I think we'll try and have a solid defence and keep clean sheets, but be lacking a little bit in terms of creativity, numbers and bodies going forward. But I think we'll be okay. I like the signings we've made. We've made 4, like 3 of them. I think we've upgraded the goalkeeper. I think we've got in a good left wing back in Juve who feels key to the way that Potter wants to play. I think Walker Peters is good cover for the African Cup of Nations when Wan-Bissaka goes and Juve goes as well. Still lacking, still need a couple of signings, but I'm confident we will sign a couple of players. I'm just hoping they're good enough. So I'm going to put us in 15th, but it's one of them where I'm maybe a bit more looking over my shoulder rather than looking up. 9th place, Man United. A difficult team to call, isn't it? It's last season, let's make no mistake about it, they were an utter shambles. It was embarrassing what they served up last season. However, no European football. And then the signings of Mboma, Cunha and Sesko. I mean, that front three and Bruno Fernandes, it's a bloody good. Put it this way, would Newcastle have that front three? I think the answer is yes. Well, Newcastle are a Champions League club with aspirations of one day challenging for the title. That's a very good front three. It's just, can Amorim get this group of players playing the way he wants? And regardless of whether the answer is yes or no, but with the assumption it's yes, is the way he wants to play good enough for the Premier League? Will it work in the Premier League? And I think so, is my answer. So I think they'll have a decent enough season. If someone comes along and says, I think Man U will finish in European spots, I'm not going to argue. If you think they're going to finish in the bottom half, I'm also not going to argue. I think they are one of the teams that I think is very difficult to call. I won't be surprised if they were to finish 6th or 7th. I also would not be surprised if they finished 14th. So I'm going to go with 9th. I think they'll be all right this season. But with no European football, I think they need to do more than that. They need to qualify for European football. Can they afford financially to have 2 seasons on the trot with no European football? I'm not so sure. I think Amorim's got to deliver some form of qualification. I'm not sure he will. It's big competition at the top of the Premier League. Speaking of a team that I think will finish above them, and that's Brighton. I'm going to put them in 7. Temptation to go higher. I'm not going to lie. Big fan of Brighton. Big fan of Brighton's squad. Big fan of Brighton's transfer business. Of Herzler. It's ticking all the boxes. Everything I want to see at a football club. Brighton are ticking everything. I think they've got some really good players there. I think they still need a couple of additions. Need to sort out the defence. In terms of last season, they were scoring plenty of goals. They were beating plenty of teams. They beat Liverpool, they beat Man City. Just conceded a lot. I think you have to go down as far as 15th, I think, to find a team that conceded more goals than Brighton last season. So they need to sort out that defence. But they've tried to. They brought in recruits this summer. I think they're in for a good season. No European football as well. Yeah, I've got high hopes for Brighton. So I'm going to put them in 7th. But there was a temptation for myself to go 6th or even 5th. I'm not going to lie. Losing Pedro, obviously they've lost a talented player. But I think Rutter's a wonderful talent. And I think at times last season, I think Pedro was actually a hindrance to them. And it was, come out that Van Heck and him went head to head in training and stuff. That stuff does not help. So they've removed what they consider to be an issue. Chelsea have gained him and got a talented player. There's no doubt about that at all. But I think Brighton can perhaps be better for that. Yeah, they're 7. I have big expectations for Brighton. I'd be very disappointed. I think minimum, Brighton, top 10. Anything less, I would consider that a bad season for them. Just above them, I'm going to go Newcastle in 6th place, which will be disappointing for any Newcastle fans listening. Their hopes obviously will be Champions League football. 5th May, get Champions League football this season again. But obviously that wouldn't be enough for Newcastle. I still think their transfer business is... It feels really bad because of the Isak saga. I think it's actually not that bad. They needed a goalkeeper. They've got one. I have reservations over him, but they've got one. They needed a centre-back. They've got one now in Chow. They needed a right winger. They've got one in Elanga. They're now getting Jacob Ramsey in to essentially replace Sean Longstaff's role in the team. That's an upgrade. It's that striker. Now, they're obviously going to get Wissa in, who, in theory, replaces Callum Wilson. So that they then need, you would imagine, to replace Isak, which is the difficult thing. And you can't. But what they can do is go get someone that's much better. So yes, you miss out on Isak, but what you do is you go get 2 strikers who are undoubtedly much better than Callum Wilson. And if they get Wissa, that's 1, they need to go get another one. And if they do that, actually, squad-wise, I think they're actually stronger than last season. It's just because they've missed out on Mbomo, Ekitike, Sesko, and then the Isak things happen. It feels like a disaster at St James's Park. I don't think it is. Big season coming up, Champions League football. Last time they had it, they didn't qualify for Champions League football again. That's the big question for Eddie, or about Eddie Howe. Can you compete in Champions League whilst qualifying for Champions League? And I think if the answer is yes, if they'd managed to finish in the top 4/5 this season and get Champions League football, I would consider that a success for Newcastle. At some point, they would have had to win a trophy. He's done that now. I think that buys you time. You've proven you can win a trophy. You've proven you can get Champions League football. Now can you go and prove you can qualify for Champions League football whilst competing in Champions League football? I'm not so sure they'll manage it. Right then, that leaves the title and the relegation. Let's deal with the title first of all. Man City or Liverpool? I'm going to go Liverpool. I think there's going to be teething problems with this new style of play under Arne Slot. I think they might have a bit of a bumpy period at the start in the Premier League. I think they'll score lots of goals. I think they'll concede more this season. But it's hard not to fancy Liverpool for the title when you look at the business that they've done. They've improved their team. they walked it in the end in the Premier League last season. And yes, you'll say, well, Man City weren't as good as they should have been, and so on and so forth. All true. But then we're all assuming Man City will be much better, Chelsea will be much better. Actually, why can't we assume Liverpool will also be much better? I think they might improve, but like I said, I think the gap will be closer. I think City, who I think I'm going to put in second place, I think will be closer to Liverpool this year than anyone was at any point last season. Now, they've been dealt a blow with Rodri, but they started a rebuild back in January. But the best rebuild at City, the rebuild I'm looking forward to, isn't what they've done on the pitch, it's off the pitch. Getting in former Liverpool assistant manager Pep Lijnders. I'm looking at him thinking, clearly they're going to try and tweak the way that they play from this slow possession, build up and pass, Pep Guardiola style. It feels like they're going to be adding a little bit more tempo to the game, a bit more rush, try and score more goals on the transition, try and be quicker at breaking. I think Man City are going to have another layer of attack to them this season, which I think they need. I don't want to say they got sussed out last season, but I feel like the fear factor disappeared a little bit when you played Man City. I think Pep's trying to get it back by, well, hiring Pep. Right, off to the relegation zone. We've got 4 teams. Brentford, Sunderland, Wolves, Leeds. Not in that order, I must stress. In 16th place, I'm going to put Brentford. And I appreciate Brentford fans watching this are going to get annoyed. I can tell because I've done a couple of videos. The first one I did about Brentford, I basically said about Keith Andrews. I said, if any club can replace their manager with a set-piece coach and be okay, it's Brentford. I see him as a cog. You've taken the Thomas Frank cog out and you put the Keith Andrews one in. Not the end of the world. And us Brentford fans said, yeah, this is exactly it. Happy days. Then I did my early predictions video a couple of weeks ago, and I did it as a tier list, and I put Brentford in the relegation battle. And I got a bit of a blowback from Brentford fans saying, well, people always said we'd struggle here and struggle here and struggle here. But what you can't do, Brentford fans, is apply other people's opinions to other people. So a couple of them said, well, we were going to struggle when we sold Ivan Toney, we were going to struggle here. But the thing is, I've never said any of those things. I've never once thought Brentford would struggle until now. This is the first time I think Brentford might struggle. And I stand by what I said about swapping the cogs. But keeping on with that example, it's not just one cog, is it? Thomas Frank's come out. Some of his coaching teams come out. The captain's come out. Whistler's coming out. And Bomo's coming out. It's a lot of parts of the very, very well-oiled machine. Incredible success story. And if it was just one thing, I think I'd be quite confident. And it's quite a significant thing as well. If all Brentford did was swap Frank for Andrews, it's a big thing. But I'd be confident they'll be all right. But when you change everything I've just listed, it feels like there's a lot of change. And you're not just swapping, I don't mean to be too disrespectful, but you're not swapping Kane, Lewis Potter at left back, are you? You're swapping your main goal threats. Now, Thiago's now fit again after he was meant to replace Ivan Toney. That's good. Shada, I think, was fantastic last season. Didn't get enough plaudits because of Wissam and Bomo. He's still there. Collins is still there. Damsgaard's still there. You got Adam Hickey and Rico Henry back now at full fitness. I think Kelleher's a good signing. So there's a lot to like about Brentford. I am just really nervous that there's just too much change, but not only quantity, the quality as well. I just worry that it's the big cogs they're changing. So I'm going to put them in 16th. I think this is going to potentially be a bit of a nervy season for Brentford. And as I say, let me be clear, I hope they manage it. I do. But I also don't want to commit myself to that because I want to save for the other teams as well. Right then, 19th, 17th and 18th left. 19th, I'm going to put Leeds. Start of the transfer window, good. I'm a big fan of the signing of Anton Stack. I don't think it's getting enough plaudits or praise. So maybe I've convinced myself I'm just overrating Stack. That's it. I'm overrating him. It's going to be crap. I don't think he will be. I think he'll be good. So much so that Fantasy League's got this new defensive point scoring system thing. That guy's going to achieve them, right? Stack is going to be picking up points for tackles and clearances and stuff. Really good number 6 to have. And I appreciate they brought in their giants to compete with the physicality of the Premier League. I'm not doubting that. I'm doubting the front three. I just don't think it's good enough. They've signed Calvert-Lewin today. I hope you're going to sign someone else. That can't be the only striker that you bring in. Now, Fark said he wants Premier League quality. You could argue, we will argue, I think it's a fair one to say, well, you've got it now. That's a Premier League quality striker. And I think on his day it is. But the problem is, A, it's been a while since it's been his day. And B, he's going to get injured at some point. I feel quite confident about that. I just think while Leeds might have brought in big players, I think they're just a bit light up top. Also, not convinced by Fark. I'm not Fark's biggest fan. And then the suggestions maybe, well, you're just biased then. Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's my channel, it's my video. I am biased, just like when you guys get involved with your predictions, you're going to be biased too. Leeds fans will be biased, usually pro Leeds, and that's okay. But we're all biased because of our opinions, if that makes sense. So I'm going to put Leeds in 19th. In 17th place, I'm going to put Sunderland. Now, there is an element of fairy tale. There is an element of because I want it to happen here. But I'm trying to discount that. Now, I've watched Sunderland. Here's some of you will know this, but for those that don't. So when it comes to Championship football, rather than watching whatever game and watching every team play 5 times a season or something, I prefer historically what I've done is pick 3 teams at the start of the season, and whenever I watch Championship football, one of those 3 teams are playing, I watch them. Because I would rather know more about 3 teams and next to nothing about 21 than next to nothing about 24, right? So I would just rather focus on. So historically, I've had Sunderland, I've had Middlesbrough, I've had Ipswich for various different reasons. Now this season, it's Ipswich and Stoke. Ipswich because I think they might win the league. And then Stoke because of the West Ham connection. Cresswell, Mubama, Sorba Thomas, and then the other young lad whose name I keep forgetting. But there's 4 ex-West Ham players at Stoke this season. Now, I haven't got a third one yet. I think there's almost going to be a mix between Birmingham and Wrexham because I want them to lose. And Southampton as well. Don't know why. Will still maybe. I'm not sure. But anyway, my point is I've seen a lot of Sunderland in the Championship. And I will hold my hands up and say I've seen more of Sunderland than Leeds and Burnley. Okay? So I feel like my opinion on Sunderland is a lot firmer and it's a lot more solid than the other 2. So if any Burnley or Leeds fans are saying, nah, I'm not convinced you've watched loads of us, that's fair. I've probably watched you 5-6 times last season each, maybe a bit more for Leeds and Burnley. That's it. But with Sunderland, I watched them more. I think the tactics might work in the Premier League, counter-attacking football, sitting back, soaking up the pressure as much as they can, being compact, but also hitting them on the attack with pace, going forward with pace, being direct. I think that those may work. Burnley's worked in the Championship. I think Sunderland's may work in the Premier League. In terms of their team when they came up, when you look at the 3 squads, I think Sunderland almost had the one maybe best suited to the Premier League. There's a lot more players in there. I thought, could they step up to the Premier League? Maybe with Sunderland. Now, granted, they've sold one of them, but I like what they've done in terms of their business. I think Xhaka is my favourite signing of the summer transfer window of all clubs. I think it's exactly what you need. Someone that brings loads of experience, loads of leadership to quite a youthful Sunderland side as well. So that deep-lying playmaker, he's got the athletic legs of Diarra next to him as well. I like it. Now, Sunderland have still got a lot to do. I still think they need to get attackers in. I know they've got Gay in from Chelsea. I've not seen loads of him, just 10, 15-minute cameos off the bench here and there. Not enough to really get a solid opinion on him. But I think Sunderland might just do it. I hope one of them do it. Burnley, Leeds or Sunderland. I just pray that one of them stay up. It's important for the Premier League. And that leaves Wolves. And I appreciate Wolves fans are going to get a bit annoyed here. But everyone's going to get annoyed at predictions. No one wants to see their team in predicted bottom 3s, right? But I think the loss of Cunha is huge. I think the loss of Ait Nouri is huge. And I appreciate they've replaced them. And I liked what I seen from Arias at the Club World Cup. Yes, I know he created the most chances at the Club World Cup. That's good. But you know when you just get a feeling, and I appreciate I'm now justifying this with vibes. I'm going to go elsewhere in a minute, but just for the next minute. You know when you just get a feeling? I've just got a feeling with Wolves. Now, I like the centre-back they brought in January, Agabadu. I think he's top quality. But I still have reservations over the rest of the defence. The midfield too of Andre and Gomez I think is brilliant, but I've sort of got reservations over the others. Larson had a great season last season, but I just can't help feel Cunha is irreplaceable to Wolves. And I think Wolves fans would agree with that. So it's how do you improve the squad? And I'm not 100% sure they have. Now, there's still a long way to go, Dwayne. Just my opinion may change on this. And I actually quite like their manager. But I feel like a lot of last season, Wolves just went on this ridiculous run. Winning 6 games in a row was incredible. And it was fun. But I always get suspicious when strikers do something like that. So if a striker comes to the Premier League, scores 6 games in a row, I'm like, right, that's good. But let's see you go 5 games without a goal, and let's see how you cope with that, how you react when you're on a low. And I feel I'm a bit like that with Vitor, and it's a bit unfair on him, because I'm thinking, well, let's see what you do if Wolves lose 4 games on the bounce. So maybe I'm being a bit harsh on Wolves, but someone's got to occupy 18th. I just think, I look at that squad, and I'm just unconvinced by it. I think they still need some additions. Anyway, there you go. That's my predictions for this season in the Premier League. Liverpool winning it. And then we've got Sunderland staying up with Wolves, Leeds and Burnley going down. Don't be shy. It's your turn now. If you haven't already, please do get involved in the comments below. Give me your predictions 1 to 20. And remember, it's just a bit of fun. If you enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on it by clicking the thumbs up button. Subscribe if you're new to Tartan Geo if my wish.com graphics haven't put you off, and I'll catch up with you in a bit.